Welcome to Keep the Line Moving, the podcast where leadership meets life and inspiration. Here we spotlight extraordinary leaders. We're diving deep into how they inspire, motivate, and lead with strategy and empathy to achieve the extraordinary. Here we go. Episode 131 of the podcast, and our topic is humans and AI. That's right. How are we not intimidated? How can we understand this complex technology? Yes, it's messy, but guess what? It's not optional. We all have to understand it. Similar to the iPhone, or even going back further, the desktop computer, right? Our conversation with Matthew Beane is a rich one. He's an author, an educator, and so much more. His book, which came out in June of 2024, is called The Skill Code: How to Save Human Ability in an Age of Intelligent Machines. Here's his background. He focuses on AI in the workforce, mainly robots in healthcare and surgery. But this conversation is broad, and it can get us specific as we narrow down what it takes to interact with AI in our daily lives. He has a BA of philosophy. He has a master's in management research from MIT, a PhD from MIT. He also studied jazz performance at the Berklee School of Music. Currently, he's a digital fellow at MIT and Stanford and is an assistant professor at UCSB in their technology management program. I can keep going, and I'm going to give you background on this very interesting individual. He was selected in 2012 as a human-robot interaction pioneer and as a regular contributor to popular outlets such as Wired, MIT's Technology Review, TechCrunch, Forbes, and RoboHub. He was recommended to us by organizational psychologist and best-selling author Adam Grant. And we appreciate this recommendation very much. You will see why as we begin the conversation with Matthew Beane. All right, everybody, look who it is. Matt Beane. He's an author. He's an educator. We have so much to talk about with him. Where do you start with someone like yourself? Because I think what you are about, in your academic and writing world is very important. However, I like to, as I said before we did hit record, I like to present it in a way that it's actionable, right? And people can get use out of it. So, Matt, where do we start? You're an expert in AI, technology, learning that. So it's an advantage for us in the workplace. Did I summarize it correctly? If I did not, please correct me and take us in a direction where you would like to go.
Oh, sure. No, that's ballpark correct. I mean, the opener in my book spells it out real clearly, and my parents could verify for you. Ever since I was a little kid, I was both personally obsessed with how people learned how to do stuff, the latest, most amazing tech, but even more, what could we dream about, what's possible, like what's around the corner kind of questions. And one way or another, I mean, my career has not been a straight arrow, but it's all been aligned with those two questions. And starting now 14 years ago, 14 years, that is a true statement. I started my PhD explicitly to do A-plus research about how we're introducing intelligent tech like AI and robotics into the workplace and how that changes the way that we get good at stuff. And so that's more or less it, and what I've been on about ever since.
Okay, so learning, and you can't, and right, I saw that in your book that you come from a family of educators. You're an educator. And your book, by the way, is called The Skill Code: How to Save Human Ability in an Age of Intelligent Machines. So the person that is navigating their lives, right? They could be in the banking industry or the film, right? I took two extremes, right? We have to learn this, right? Because by 2030, this will happen. By 2055, that'll happen. So what would you say to somebody who is on the cusp of diving into AI because it's infiltrating all that we
Mm-hmm.
do? What would you say to that person that is a little bit intimidated? And I know you talk about that with learning
Sure.
and shadow learners and things of that nature.
Yeah, well, I hear you is the first thing to say. This stuff is happening really fast, and a lot of it's kind of unreliable and unclear. So, if you're looking at AI and feeling like, whoa, this is a lot, or what even is this stuff, and how do I keep up? you are with probably about 2.6 billion working adults right now, the vast majority. And so the main thing to know, I think, is that just like with any new general purpose technology, you could think, say, the steam engine to the internet, some technology that pretty much means everybody doing anything is going to change what they're doing a little bit to accommodate the new world that allows for. What that means in the first, say, 10 years is a bunch of confusion, waste, harm, experimentation. It's messy. And so if you're going to get into the ring and try to figure this stuff out from your point of view, that's what you should expect. There is no hidden message about what this stuff is, the best way to use it, and what skills you need to learn in order to stay relevant and so on. It's just humanity is in a giant collective, high velocity, high kinetic energy experiment right now, figuring this stuff out. It's kind of not optional, is the other part, because it's going to affect you. The research backs this up, but it does seem to really support this idea that the people who really try and waste some calories trying to figure out how to deal with this stuff are going to end up with a leg up on folks who don't. So that's important. The thing I think maybe that, and this is all sort of laid out in the book, but the thing that is that I discovered in my research, if I sort of found one thing that's really useful for folks to know, is that there's a hidden cost in picking up any new intelligent technology and putting it to work. And the hidden cost is usually not felt by the person putting it to work. Usually what happens is somebody who knows how to do something, and you can think of ChatGPT as a good example of this, picks it up and, do they know what they're doing? No, but they can put it to use in a way where like, wow, I got that memo done in 10 seconds instead of an hour and a half. And you know how to write that memo, so you can look at it and go, hey, that's not too bad. I can tweak that and fix that, send that off. You're not going to feel the pain or the problem that's in the middle of my book. The problem is that what you just did is make a novice optional in your work. Whereas before, and I show this in over 30 occupations in the book, and I've added to the list, from surgery to bomb disposal to policing, online education, high finance, you name it, is that expert who picks up that tool, they're going to learn some stuff and get better results. Maybe they could do a lot better, but they're better. And the novice who's trying to learn to become them, who they used to be, has less of a shot to play ball side by side with that expert on a problem. And by the way, the expert's not going to notice that problem because they're delighted they get to solve more, better, faster, cheaper. It's entrancing. I can speak from personal experience. That is basically weakening that taken for granted engine that is the thing that has built human skill over 160,000 years, actually, right at the time where we all need to be learning better, faster, building better human connections, not worse, not less. So that's a sort of sum up threat that's in the middle of that book that I think you should know. And everybody should know. Like if you pick this stuff up and you use it in a way that is just sort of out of the box, how it's configured, you're gonna dumb others down and maybe yourself down. And that's something to watch for. The back third of the book is the opposite could be true. We can have exactly the opposite of that. We can, in fact, make things better, deeper, richer in learning and human connection because of these tools rather than in spite of them. And that's the kind of future I'm focused on now. That's what I've been looking for in my research. I always look for exceptions, positive exceptions where folks are, in fact, defying that block to learning and finding a new way.
That is so interesting, so helpful in how you dissect the book in the three areas, right? That you examine the complexities of AI. And you said something at the beginning of your wonderful explanation of outlining basically the book and the strategies for individuals, but you said something that did not pass. So you said right now. So explain to folks the breaking point. When did it happen? When did it shift from this is AI, this is a luxury, to where it is a necessity, and it's really becoming something in business where it's like let's go back, a typewriter evolving into a computer. So my point is, you said right now. What is the right now? Is that back 5 years ago, 10? Where are we in that evolution, if you may?
Yeah, so I think the right way to anybody who said there was a switch that was flipped is selling you something. So I think it's true that ChatGPT and its arrival, which is going on 2 years ago now, was a big moment for the world. But one of the great treats of writing this book was to go back through all the history of research on work, performance of work, and apprenticeship at work, like how folks actually build skill on the job. And it turns out the science on how that skill development and what automation means to that, the science on that skill development process goes back literally 160,000 years, back to the invention of the bow and language. Basically, that's when those two things happened. And I found really fascinating archaeological evidence about concerns about automation and the master-apprentice relationship from ancient Greece. Basically at the switch between hand-pinched pottery, when folks used to make pots by hand with coils and they'd lay coils of clay on top of each other and smooth them out and stuff, to a potter's wheel, where you'd kick the thing and spin it and so on. Less of a role there for an apprentice to sort of hold it up while the master works away. And there were concerns written on little strips of lead tossed into wells, people saying, what about the kids these days? How are they going to learn how to do this? Because I can do so much more, better, faster now. They weren't that overt about it, but the story's there if you look at it right. The difference today, that is a sort of I would say over the last 40 years is probably the right way to look at it, is that we've introduced increasingly intelligent technology into the world of work, AI and robotics. Only in the last, say, 5 or 10 have we gotten that to the point where they're so capable and inexpensive and widely available that these issues have exploded outwards. But when I started my research in 2010, it was plenty evident. You had to look in particular places early to find it. So I'd say the sort of the difference now to ancient Greece is just volume, speed, intensity. It's just a lot harder for that novice to find a natural place to sit in the work where they can learn just by helping out.
That is so fascinating that you date it back that far. I love that. I think that's such a healthy way of looking at it. And you also have alluded to in the book, and today you're talking about knowing how you learn. Could you talk about, referenced in your book, I alluded to it earlier, shadow learners, people who gain skill by breaking some rules?
Yeah. I went and studied robotic surgery for 2.5 years and compared lots of things, but one of them was how are medical residents learning how to be surgeons with and without that tool in the room. And what I found real quick, like within 2 weeks of spending time in ORs at some of the best teaching hospitals in the States, is that they weren't. Like, it was really hard to learn because they would show up in the OR, they'd get that robot attached to a patient with the senior surgeon, they'd sit down at control consoles, and then that junior person would fold their arms and watch TV for 2 hours, 4 hours. They wouldn't get to do anything because the senior surgeon could do the whole procedure themselves with that robot. So they'd get maybe 10, 15 minutes worth of practice on average, which is way less than 4.5 hours. That was the norm. And it took me a year and a half of watching procedures at many institutions to even figure out and then systematically find that there were people who in fact were getting really, really good, really fast at robotic surgery. They were really rare. It was like 1 in 10, 1 in 8. And the way they were building skill is exactly this shadow learning business you were talking about. They were breaking and bending rules to get their skill. If you followed the playbook, what people said you needed to do to build skill, you wouldn't. And most folks are just trying to do a good job, trying to learn. And to put a fine point on it, a shadow learner in robotic surgery would find ways to operate on patients when the senior surgeon was not in the room. That is not against the law, as far as I know, but it is definitely not how we want the surgical profession to go about doing its job. Nobody thinks that's appropriate, even the learner, and yet that's what they did. So there are shadow learners everywhere, in every occupation, in every organization right now, especially given this whole ChatGPT thing that's going on. There's somebody near you, maybe you're that person, who has found a way to build skill using this new tech, and it's not quite an appropriate way of building skill. Maybe you're using it when you're told not to. Maybe you're passing off your output as your own when it's not. Nobody would look at that and say, "Oh, that's great, good job. We should all copy you." But there's a hidden grain of truth inside that shadow learning that can teach us all about healthier, appropriate ways to build skill in this new world we're building. It consists of challenge, complexity, and connection. We can unbundle those if you want. But bottom line, those are the three things that shadow learners across occupations, industries, and technologies, they were fighting to protect in their skill development. That's part of how I even noticed what those things were. Is that, I mean, if you're willing to stick your neck out and either get fired or risk disapproval to build skill, then what you're doing has to work. It has to be real good. It has to be worth that risk. And so shadow learners were an early kind of canary in the coal mine or a positive needle in the negative haystack that I could look at and say, all right, well, we can't copy them. No one should copy them. That's not appropriate. But they're teaching us something about what humans really, really actually need to build skill. And maybe we can learn from that. So the book is my attempt at saying you don't have to go breaking rules. You can just see what these folks were fighting for and try to preserve it in your work.
So you're interacting with students all the time. How do you advise them when they say, hey, Matt, you understand rule breaking? Hey, Matt, you understand how to learn? For goodness sakes, we're having lectures on this. We're having exchanges one-on-one. How do you draw that fine line between you don't want them getting fired or getting in trouble, but you want them to, challenge, complexity, connection in an education? Or to describe the difference between in the general populace and students.
Right. Yeah. So the short story is that in one way or another, for you to learn, and by learn, I don't mean learning book knowledge or understanding a concept. I mean building the ability to produce valuable behavior under pressure. That's skill. If you want that, you need those three ingredients: challenge, complexity, and connection, and they need to be in healthy supply. And so for a student, there's a 10-point checklist for those things in the book, but I can practically say to a student, or I can say to anybody listening, challenge is not a pleasant experience. You are not performing at your best if you're in a healthy challenge. You're totally focused on what you're trying to do. And you're close to, but not at the edge of your ability. An expert, if they're around, can help you do that better and more and go farther than you would otherwise. But that's, for instance, how you know how to get at challenge. Now, very practically, tactically, I wrote a piece in my Substack last fall in October called "Don't Let AI Dumb You Down." And in that piece, the back quarter of it is, how do I change the settings in ChatGPT so that it nudges me in the right direction on challenge, complexity, and connection rather than in the wrong direction? That's some tactical advice I give my students. So you, in all these systems now, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, you can go in and change the custom settings in these systems so that it understands that you have two objectives, not just one. I want to get my job done. I want to accomplish this task, but I also want to build skill. And so I need to preserve challenge, complexity, and connection. Here's what those look like. Here's how I want you to treat me so that I can get my results and have my skill too. And one of the things that for now, putting those settings into ChatGPT, one of the effects of that for me is that when I say, hey, can you generate this graph or this Python code for me? ChatGPT will say, how much of that do you want to do on your own? Or maybe do you want to try some of that first and struggle and fail and then get help from me? Or do you want to just me to do it? Another one is there another human being you could connect with about this to learn more rather than just DMing with me, fake human? So the system itself kind of nudges me away from this isolated, digital, self-sealing little environment you can get in. So you can make the tech work for you. You just have to know how to reconfigure it is one thing. Because these students, at least for you, for me, I don't know about for you, every single assignment, I should just be betting on the fact, and in fact, this goes at work too, that any student will just take that text, dump it into ChatGPT, get the answer, and then either turn it in if they are absolutely not motivated and aren't interested in working on anything, or they'll edit it somewhat, they'll be thoughtful about it, but they're certainly going to turn to it first. So just to be super practical about it, yes, I teach them about those 3 C's. That's important so they can have a wide radar about my work and what it would need to feel and look like for me to know that I was going to be building skill. But specifically, how do I deal with this new tool that we're all just using for everything now? And how do I make it sort of turn into a 401k for learning for me? Like how is it going to sort of nudge me in the right direction without me really even noticing it?
So valuable. I love all of that. That's so valuable. I didn't even know that, prior to engaging with you, right? About that you could change the settings in these wonderful AI tools to say like, hey, that's so valuable. Do you know anybody who knows that? Can you go engage instead of, I don't know if they have language that says instead of DMing with me, I think that was your language, but it's
Yeah.
something along those lines. So to that point, I must admit, in my classes, I say, have your head on a swivel when you walk to the coffee shop, when you're walking down Fifth Avenue in New York City. Put the phone down, gaze, see who you can meet, engage with, work on your connections, your ability to connect as a human being, knowing your unique story. When you're in a job interview, make eye contact, listen more than you talk. And I'm sure you say the same things. How do you balance in your professional life at UCSB that the fact that you want to obviously educate those to flourish in life, but you have an area of expertise, but you want them to be able to have a well-rounded approach to the next phase of their lives? How do those conversations go, Matt, within your classes?
The third C in that three C's that I mentioned is connection, which we don't often think of as related to getting good at something, and a connection being a warm bond of trust and respect between human beings. But the research is just stone cold clear there that number one, you don't get access to good learning opportunities unless you have earned the trust and respect of somebody who has the authority to give you a chance to play. So there's an access component to build, making that eye contact, engaging with someone proactively, and sort of seeking that bond. But there's also a sort of motivation component. Like, why even try to get good in the first place? We often treat that like that's something that, just folks should do, want to do, whatever. I don't know about you, I bet you have stories. For me personally, if I think about, like, why did I want to get good at sales? Why did I want to get good at the science of learning? Why did I want to get good at research? It was less a how question there than a who. Because there was someone who I wanted to earn their trust and respect, and I was going to try harder, faster, and better, even if trust and respect from them just sounded like, hey, that's pretty good. Like, and they never say that kind of thing.
Right.
And I think it flows both ways. So the senior person, and I spend a lot of time with senior execs these days, and I cannot tell you the number of times folks have said, what means the most to me in my career right now? Helping up the next generation, really, being there in a way where I'm most valuable in amplifying that person's potential. And that trust, so they're seeking the trust and respect of the novices who are trying to work their way up towards them. So building that kind of a connection, there's a set of skills around that. You need to know what it is, you need to know how to do it, and you need to be always doing it in a way in domains you care about. So yeah, that's going to build you skill, and I'm the skill and AI guy, so I'm focused there. But the comforting thing to me, the energizing thing, is that building human connections is just part of what makes life great. So I feel like I'm getting a twofer.
I guess we still call them tweets, right? Tweets on X. All right, whatever. This is you. Unpack this for us if you could. You start to learn something special when you read lots of prompting by different people trying to solve the same problem. What generated that thought, if I could?
That's fun. So yeah, I unbeknownst to the world, and soon there'll be an announcement about this. So for about the last 9 months, my research team and I and some collaborators have been working to do some new fundamental science with the research folks at OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, on what people actually do when they're using these systems to try to solve problems, and the effects of their tactics on what they learn and how good they do on the task. But we don't know why. We don't know what's going on under the hood. And that's what we're doing. We are going, in fact, all night, basically into the night last night, up this morning, and I'm nearly done now. A PhD student of mine and I are going through line by line on like literally thousands of interchanges across many different exchanges experts in high finance in this case are using these systems to solve a really complicated finance problem. But it's the same problem, different people, same tool. And we're going to have some new science about like what are people doing when they're engaging with these tools, and where is it costing them learning? Where is it costing them efficiency? Where in the end it looks like they got a big boost, but in fact they wasted a bunch of time over here, kind of thing. So that is me. I just decided I'd put that Easter egg in public, and then later I could call out. And here you just called it out right now to say, yeah, they were doing something interesting, and this is a little clue about that new science that should be coming out soon.
What you're saying, what I heard there is this, because the key word here in this sentence from your tweet in early November is prompting. So what I'm saying, so it's a complex problem, and you said a lot of people, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, I don't know how many you said, are trying to figure out the same problem. So what you're saying is what they're writing in to ask the various layers of questions.
You got it.
Does that mean down to the conjunctions? I mean, are you analyzing to that level of detail? Is it punctuation? Just help me here. This is fascinating.
Yeah. For instance, early it was fun. We had this hypothesis like, does it matter if you're nice to these things? Like, are you polite?
Yes.
Turns out it does matter. Does not.
It does not.
At least in the data that we've got. No, and then somebody else has written a paper on that one. That wasn't our primary concern. So definitely down to the preposition level, because how they are framing what they're doing, what kinds of information they're prompting for. So a bunch of interdependent questions, and sometimes it's down to the word. Other times it's kind of bigger chunks of text.
I come from the world of sports. I'm sure you looked a little bit at my background.
Yes, I did.
So I'm going to equate it to baseball batting practice. So you see some people get in the cage, the batting cage, and they casual swings, and they're not serious, and then they warm up, and then they start, either trying to hit home runs or whatever, but they're not in there with intention. When they're in the game, it's the complete opposite. So my point is, you're writing a report, right? You're at it. Your brain is moving, your hands, everything is in sync.
Yep.
Then you go to ChatGPT or you go to an AI tool and you're laxed, your body language change. Help me with this, that, and the other. What I'm hearing you say is, if you want the most out of AI and as a learning tool, approach it the same as you would as your own work. Take that attitude and that seriousness and that savviness into the prompt. Am I going anywhere with this?
You're absolutely going in the right direction. So I'll just fast forward right to the end and say what we're trying to do is build the science that gives you, if you're like a pro ball player now, I think let's talk about that. That person needs very, very precise guidance on where to direct their attention, what to focus on, what to break down in practice, what to sweat when they're up to a bat in the real game, and so on. And the world doesn't have that yet. That's what we're trying to do. So right now, the kind of guidance you just gave is the best the world has to offer, which is actually, no, sorry. The best of the world, the normal one you'll hear from the world is, oh, here's AI, go use it. The one, if you just heard it from me, is be careful. If you use this stuff without thinking, you may be trading away your skill for fast results. That's the course advice. That's not good enough. Give me a break. That's not precise enough. We're trying to break down a problem. Let's say doing a financial valuation for a merger and acquisition. That's a task a financial professional has to do. That's listed as one task in your job description. For us, that's about, I think it's literally 117 tasks. And we're finding out specifically, out of that 117, where are you getting the juice in using this tool? Where is it slowing you down? Where are you losing skill? Where are you gaining skill? And then we can give back to every individual, corporations, the ability to look at that workflow and say, hey, you know what? In these 11 subtasks, go ahead. Use it to your heart's content. You're not, you'll get a speed up and there's no price to pay in your skill or the skill of a novice. And in these other 19, in fact, you're going to want to use it, but you shouldn't. Right now, we just don't have precise guidance there. So we're trying to do that science. I'm also starting a company to commercialize that technology and help companies look at themselves much more precisely so that it's not this sort of on, off, yes, no, be careful or don't kind of question. That's just nowhere close to fine-grained enough. A pro athlete would not tolerate that kind of guidance, and the world shouldn't either.
I almost feel guilty going to all-star moments because I'm enjoying this conversation so much, but let's just do it, okay? Because I think
Let's go
people
for
want to
it.
know you, and I think, yeah, okay.
Sure.
We will get to all-star moments in just a second. To grow as a leader, you must make intentional choices about how you want to show up for yourself and your team. Are you ready to grow your leadership? The Gargano Leadership Group offers expert coaching, consulting, and workshops rooted in our 4 leadership pillars: curiosity, alignment, optimism, and self-awareness. Leadership starts with forging authentic connections, communicating your values, leading with energy and enthusiasm, and truly understanding yourself. Visit garganoleadership.com to get started with us today. Back to the show. You ready?
Yep.
Question number 1. First thought, best thought. Don't think, just answer. Your favorite comedian?
Oh, that's got to be Nate Bargatze these days.
Your favorite movie of all time?
Okay, fine. Indiana Jones. First Indiana Jones.
Ah, it's wonderful. Favorite TV show of all time?
It's got to be Star Trek. Next Generation.
You go out to dinner, you order something, that ideal meal.
Ooh, yeah, Spanish tapas, probably. I'm a vegetarian, and we just got lucky in this town, and we have a great one. But a good joint. It's Spanish tapas all the way.
Your favorite sports team of all time, growing up, now, or otherwise?
Yeah, so it was the Larry Bird's Celtics with Danny Ainge and Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale, all the rest of those guys. That's the basketball team I grew up on. Yeah.
I love those teams. Those teams were fantastic. How do you
Yep.
deal with adversity?
Curiosity and aggressive exploration.
How do you give yourself fuel?
Time with my wife.
Never give up. When I say that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's true BS. It's one of those things that you love to hate and you hate to love, and it just is actually true.
All right. Lastly, value of collaboration is what?
Learning.
Matt, this has been so much fun. I have enjoyed the heck out of this. Thank you very, very much.
I am really just very grateful. This is really energizing. So thanks for the invitation.
And we thank Matthew very much for being on the show. I have several takeaways from this conversation, but I'm going to narrow it down because we don't have 5 hours, right? Here it is. I love and appreciate what Matthew said about when he was a child and he told his parents, personally, I'm obsessed with how people learn stuff, technology specifically. The only way you could make sense at such a level that Matthew is on of AI and robots and how they interact with human behavior is to have that obsession. And look at his book, The Skill Code. 3 actions that we talked about: challenge, complexity, and connection. Interdependence is crucial to building all these skills, meaning we need each other and we need the technology, right? And Matthew also emphasized that it's moving so fast, it's messy, but it's not optional. He said that all jobs by 2030 are going to have some form of AI as part of the daily tasks. So we all have to learn it, and we all have to do it together. And Matthew is a wonderful source. His book, The Skill Code, is a great resource for all of us. Hope you enjoyed this conversation, everybody. We'll see you next time on Keep the Line Moving. We love that you like it. We love that you subscribe, and we love that you give it the thumbs up. So go ahead and do that right now. I'll wait. Just kidding. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Keep the Line Moving. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Most importantly, share this podcast with your friends, family, and coworkers. It means the world to us. If you have a guest recommendation, visit our website at garganoleadership.com, where you'll also find all our archived episodes. For our marketing coordinator and the producer of this podcast, Savin Narwhal, I'm Chris Gargano. Have a fantastic week, everybody.